Personal freedom is at the forefront of conversation nowadays. With the threat of authoritarianism, corrupt corporations, and censorship. But what does it mean to have personal freedom? Where does it come from? And how can you have it despite everything that's going on around you? That's what we're going to take a look at today. Coming up. Welcome to the Power of Quiet, where we show you how to achieve a sense of clarity, confidence, power, and positivity that literally makes you indestructible. So if you're new to the channel, hit subscribe, and if you like what we do here, hit like. Now, today we're going to explore what it means to have personal freedom. And I'm going to show you a way to develop a solid foundation of freedom in your life that enables you to change the world around you for the better. But it all starts with understanding where freedom comes from. See, we mistakenly believe that freedom depends on external factors, forces out in the world around us. But it all starts within our mind. And to really understand what's going on with our mind and how it imposes the restrictions and makes us unfree, we got to understand what the mind is really all about and how it operates. Now, when we examine the mind, just look at it plainly, what we see is that it's really nothing more than a recording and playback machine. That's really all it does. We go throughout our day, and all day long, our mind is recording information, and then it plays it back to us. Now, say we go out, out and about in the day, and we come across somebody that just says something rude, mean, and nasty to us. What does our mind do all the rest of the day? It complains about it, right? Oh, you know what that person said? Oh, you know what I should have said? Oh, I wish I would have said that. It just goes on and on and on. Even when we get home at night and we're trying to go to bed, it still won't shut up. So that's basically all the mind does, is it records things and it plays it back to us, whether we want to listen to it or not. And it's because of this nature of the mind that it puts us on automatic, where we're just thinking that we have to listen to all that noise. We are listening to what our mind is telling us, and we're taking it as fact because we basically treat that mind as though it's our friend, our confidant. I mean, it's always with us, always talking to us, always keeping us company. So we treat it as our friend, and whatever it says, we tend to go along with automatically. And this is where we start getting into trouble. Now, there was an experiment done. I'm not sure how long ago it was, but what they did was they had this test subject, a person that wasn't aware that they were in the middle of an experiment, that went into a doctor's office, and they sat in the waiting room, and everybody else in the waiting room was in on the experiment. Now, what they did was every few minutes, they played a beeping noise. And when the beep went off, all the people that were in on the experiment, they stood up. And the test subject, that lady, the first couple of times she was looking at him going, "Why are you doing that?" But after the third time that the beeping went off and everybody stood up, she joined them. And from then on, the beeping continued, everybody stood up, she right along with them. Now over time, one by one, people left the waiting room until eventually it was just her all alone. And the beeping continued and she continued standing up. Now what's really amazing is that now more test subjects came in. People that weren't aware of the experiment came into the waiting room. And the beeping continued. She stood up. And at first they were looking at her. But then they joined. And eventually they had the waiting room full of people that were all standing up, and none of them knew why. I'll put a link to the video up here so you could check it out. It's really funny. But this monkey see, monkey do phenomena demonstrates how we accumulate these behaviors and beliefs that just seem to be there and seem to be unbreakable, and we don't even know where they came from. We just have them. For example, right now, we might have a belief that the economy is screwed because of all the lockdowns, because everybody's talking about it, everybody says so, and therefore, starting a new business venture, starting a new investment, or basically doing anything with our life is impossible. So therefore, if we think we have a problem, we do. If we think that there's a limitation, there is. And it's because of these recordings that we've accumulated in our mind that they create a filter through which we view the world that dictates what's possible, what our world is all about, what happens to us and around us. But once we discover that we can remove these recordings out of the mind and get that mind quiet, clear of all that noise, free of noise, that space of clarity enables us to either find a way around those limitations, or we see those limitations just crumble away. And this is provable. I'll show you how to start clearing out your mind and start crumbling the limitations that are in your life. So just start by thinking about a limitation that you have in your life right now. Maybe it's a money problem. Maybe it's a freedom problem. And as you're thinking about this problem, notice if you have a certain degree of resistance to this problem. Like you don't want it. You want it to go away. Like you're trying to push it away from you. Like, get out of here. I don't want you here. You don't belong here. But they have a saying, whatever you resist persists. You can look at it this way. Imagine like somebody's pushing on you and you're trying to resist them and push back, right? So they're pushing, you're trying to keep them away. But what's happening here? You're actually holding on to them, right? And this is like the essence of Aikido and Tai Chi, where it shows you the art of non-resistance. So if somebody pushes, you don't resist. You just kind of go with the flow and it goes right by you. And in those practices, you use the energy of the world back upon itself. And it takes no energy on your part, and you become the victor. And the same thing that's true, that's in those martial arts, is also true in your own thinking. You see, if you're resisting, like whatever the problem is, whatever that limitation is in your life right now, look at what you're doing. By resisting it, you're actually holding it in mind. And believe it or not, your mind is a creative instrument. So whatever you hold in mind, whether you're for it or against it, you're actually creating it. So, like I said, this is provable. You don't have to believe me, but I'll show you how you can experience this. You could turn that resistance around and actually feel a change inside, and following that, see a change outside. All right, so check this out. Think about that thing again. That's a limitation, a problem in your life. And feel that resistance that you have. Now, if you were to measure that resistance on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the most resistant and 0 being the least resistant, where are you? Just see where you're at. Maybe it's just a little bit. Maybe you're at a 2. Maybe you're at a 10. But whatever resistance you have here, can you see that you're saying no to that resistance. Like when the resistance comes up, anytime resistance comes up in your life, don't you have a feeling of, get out of here, resistance. I don't want you here. You say no to it. Now, when you say no to that resistance, does that make the resistance go away? No. In fact, it just gets stronger. And you could see that the same is true with the situation. You're saying no to the situation. No, get out of here. I don't want you. And as much as you say no to it, it just seems to get like more imposing, more stronger, the situation, right? So the same thing applies, but right now we're focusing on that feeling of resistance that you have. So saying no to it doesn't make that feeling of resistance go away. And so since it doesn't, let's try something different. Now take a look at that resistance, wherever it's at, a 2, a 10, or higher, wherever it is. And instead of saying no, just look at that resistance and say yes to it. That's all. Try it out. Just say yes to the resistance. And say yes to the resistance a little bit more. And say yes to that resistance a little bit more. And a little bit more. And could you say yes to the resistance a little bit more? And a little bit more. And a little bit more. And could you say yes to that resistance even more? And even more. Now measure yourself again and see if you moved on that scale of 0 to 10. See if it's a little bit lower now. Notice a difference? And notice if you feel just a little bit lighter. Notice that? Now, you also might notice as you're doing that, your mind was objecting to the whole process, maybe even screaming at you, don't say yes to the resistance. See, remember, the mind is just a recording and playback machine. And ever since you were a little kid, you were taught to resist things, right? To resist bad influences, to resist getting a cold, getting sick. And so there's a lot of recordings that have gone into your mind that says resistance is good, pushing away bad things, that's good. And so that's what your mind is throwing at you. Just recordings of stuff that's, it's accumulated, but it's bad information because you see that when you resist something, it doesn't go away. It just makes things worse. And by resisting, it's not a great feeling. And plus you resist the resistance. You say no to that feeling of resistance. But when you say yes to it, notice what happened. The resistance went down and you feel lighter, clearer, more positive. So see where you are now. What number are you at now between 0 and 10 with the resistance? 10 being the most resistant and 0 being none at all. Where are you? And take a look at that resistance, whatever's left, and just say yes to it now. And say yes to a little bit more. Just yes, Y-E-S. It's not complicated. It's really that simple. And say yes to that resistance a little bit more. And a little bit more. And more. And say yes to that resistance even more. And even more. And a little bit more. All right, now measure yourself again. See if you moved. And see if you feel even lighter now. Notice the difference? And see, you could prove this for yourself. You could see for yourself the difference it makes. And you could start seeing more and more that all that information that's in your mind that of what the world seems to be isn't necessarily true. And when you take a look at that limitation in your life right now, see if that is less true. See if you feel more easy about it, more confident about it. And you might not have like a definite solution, but just a sense, oh, I can find a way. Now, if you extrapolate that, and you might even experience a little bit now of having an answer come in, and a solution. It's like, oh, yeah, I can go in this direction. I can find a way. You see, behind all that resistance and behind your thinking mind is a place of all-knowingness, a place of intuition, a place of spontaneity that will astound you with the answers that just show up. But that's beyond your thinking mind. And as you get your mind quiet of all that noise of resistance and problems, then you see solutions for everything. Now let's go a little bit further, just to explore this and experience it more. Now you already feel lighter, right? And it shows that you actually let go of some of that resistance, that energy, that negative feeling has actually left. And you could probably feel a little bit more if there's still some more there. Now what I want you to do is let go pushing down on the rest of that resistance and just invite it up. You see, it's kind of like a feeling, like an energy inside of you. You might feel it as like an ugh feeling. And from your mind and your habits, those recordings in your mind, you want to push them down. Okay, no, that's uncomfortable. Get it out of here. But instead of pushing it down, just let it come up. And you could even imagine a door opening in front of you. And just watching this energy of resistance, this feeling, just moving out the door. And just watch that energy leave. And welcome up that resistance. And watch it leave out that door even more. And even more. And more. And even more. And even more. And even more. And even more. And how does that feel? Lighter? And take a look at that situation, that limitation. And see if it's kind of dissolved. Where you can see through it to what you really want. You're not looking at obstacles, you're looking at goals, destinations. And just by doing this simple little exercise here, you can start clearing out your mind and discover who's been in charge all along. You. After all, that mind belongs to you. You don't have to take orders from it. You don't have to let it boss you around, tell you what you can or cannot do. It's your mind. You're the boss. You're the owner. And here you are proving it. Now, this is just the beginning. But if you want to have an expert crash course on really understanding your mind, understanding that it works exactly like a computer, and that you are the programmer. You built the whole thing to begin with. That you can take back control, be in charge of that computer, and have it run as you see fit. Then check out a new class I have coming up called the Mind Freedom Course. I'll put a link to it up here and in the description down below. But it's an advanced course on taking control back of your mind, seeing everything that's in it, all that stored information from your whole life, calling it up like a menu, just like you would in a computer, seeing all the system files, all the information in it, seeing what doesn't work, seeing the viruses that are in that computer of yours, and deleting them, just like you're starting to delete now, and experiencing some clarity. When you delete the whole computer and you put yourself back in charge, you'll be astounded over what you've been holding away from yourself all this time, believing all those thoughts and forgetting who you are, that you are the master of your life and the master of the world around you. And that's provable, just like this little exercise here proved how you can make a difference. You can extrapolate it and see how far it can take you. If you want to find out, then join me for the Mind Freedom course. Again, I'll put a link to it up here and in the description below. But keep working on this. Keep looking for that resistance and recognize when you're saying no to it. And just take a moment and discriminate. Wait, when I say no to the resistance, does it go away? Does it change anything for the better? Or does it just make things worse? And if no doesn't work, what would the opposite do? I do that all the time. And watch what happens in your life. Just that. So try it and see what happens. See what develops around you. You'll see a correlation with you and the world. And prove it. And I'll see you on the next video.